Welcome into our first team dynasty recap, review, whatever you want to call it, looking at the Carolina Panthers today and just seeing what's changed with them since the beginning of the year. A lot for some teams, not a lot for others. Brian, when you think of the Carolina Panthers, what kind of first comes to your mind? What's the first word, or what do you think of when you think of the Panthers?
Just terrible.
They're so bad.
I'm really happy that the Bucks only have to beat them this week. It's week 18 right now, for context, to win their division. So I feel pretty good about that. So I'm glad they're terrible this week, anyways.
Yeah, no, pretty bad all around. The owners throwing drinks at fans, and they fired the coach mid-season. I think back-to-back seasons they've done that, which is a sign of it's probably not the coach as much as it is the overall organization. So you did mention it. It is the day before Week 18 starts, so some things can change with these teams. We're trying to touch on the teams that not a whole lot's going to change between now and the end of the week. Panthers is one of those. They are one of those teams. They have the number one pick, which is in the ownership of the Bears, but they have the number one pick for each round, the 201, 301, 401, and beyond. So just kind of quickly going through some stuff. They have $40 million in cap space, which is the 13th most heading into the offseason. So right around, slightly above average in cap space. They have 6 total draft picks. They don't have their first round pick, which is unfortunate. We don't know who their head coach is yet, which is kind of a big deal. But we won't know that for maybe another week or so, maybe longer. And then free agents. No one major. I mean, Raheem Blackshear at running back, no one really cares. DJ Shark is the biggest named receiver. That's a free agent. And beyond that, not much else. So depth chart stuff and kind of the main topic of this episode is going to be Bryce Young. On their current roster, it's Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, they have a potential out with. So I don't know if they're going to move on from him or not. He should probably be held on to for the most part, Andy Dalton, that is, as long as we saw this year how valuable backup quarterbacks are. So at least hold on to him as long as he's a QB2, I'd say.
In Superflex, right? Did you say that at the top? I think we kind of said before, like everything we talk about dynasty-wise is Superflex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely in Superflex. So yeah, Bryce Young is the big topic here. He's obviously had a pretty bad year, and it's even more, seeing what CJ Stroud's doing makes it even worse. He hasn't fallen too much. He fell from the QB 10 to start the year to the QB 17. So I guess my big question is, what would you trade him for to get out of him, and what would you trade for him to maybe acquire him on the low? Which, I don't know, like if someone offers you a late first in this year's draft, are you just sunk costs getting out of Bryce Young, or are you just going to hold on to him and see what he develops into?
If someone offered me a late first, I don't think I would do it. And on the flip side of it, like if I could get him for a late first, I probably would, just because it's, I don't think you're going to quite get him for like 2 seconds or anything just quite yet. Unless the owner's like, if you could get him for that, like that would be awesome. But I just think like it's still so early in his career, and he was so highly touted, and we've seen what he did in college. And I just think it's a little bit too early to be doing that, like given their team as a whole, their receivers and all that stuff. Like it's like let the guys like figure it out a little bit. And like you mentioned about the coach getting fired mid-season, like that doesn't help for sure, and like we saw flashes, definitely, like few and far between, but he had some good games in there. I remember when they beat Houston, I remember because it was like the whole Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud stuff back in week 8. And so I think he can still figure it out. Like, I think, buying him for a late first, or if you can get him for 2 seconds or something like that, I think you should do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind that. A late first being like pick 111, 112. I think if it gets anywhere into like the 1-8, I'd probably hold that pick. But it's tough to see. I mean, it's interesting because I was talking about this with our dad. If you think about him and Trevor Lawrence and both their rookie years, they're pretty comparable. I mean, in terms of like they were just bad their rookie years. Their coaches got fired middle of the season. And for Lawrence's situation, it was more because the coach was not a very good coach, and maybe less of that with the Panthers, but still just very bad, both very bad rookie years. And it's funny because nothing really changed with Trevor Lawrence. If you look at his like all-time rankings, I think he was drafted. He came in as like the QB 8 or 9. And by the end of his first year, he was still right around there. Like maybe it dipped a bit, a couple spots, maybe about 3 or 4 spots it dipped. Because I think he got as high as like a QB 5 or 6. So it's just funny how like, I think outside perception is like more favorable towards Trevor Lawrence. Like, oh, he's this, generational talent, stereotypical size and build, whereas Bryce Young isn't. So it's easier to like, drop him in the rankings. But I generally agree with you. If I can acquire him for that in a super flex, I would. If I could sell him for like a mid first in this year's draft, I would do that as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. So wait, what did Dad say specifically? I want to know what he said because I have a comment based on what he said, I guess.
Yeah. No, he just brought up like that, making that comparison, I guess. He didn't necessarily say one thing or another, but he just kind of said like, like Trevor Lawrence had a very similar rookie season. If you could go back and look at like the numbers and I think Lawrence is better in terms of passing yards and stuff, but just the overall touchdowns, interceptions, coach getting fired stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking he was gonna say like he sucks or something like that. Like I know Dad's not like super reactionary like that. Sometimes he can be. That's why I was kind of curious because I was actually like specifically looking at Kenny Pickett from last year. Like Bryce Young started 2 more games than him so far, and very similar stat lines. Like Bryce Young's thrown for almost 400 yards more and 4 more touchdowns. So if you figure he has like 200-yard, 2 touchdown games, which is obviously pretty hard for those guys in particular to do. But it's just kind of like, because I remember Dad specifically being kind of like, yeah, well, we got to give Kenny Pickett another year. And he's even saying that this year, which is, good to hear from him. He's not being like super reactionary, even with Kenny Pickett on his Dynasty team specifically. So I think they're kind of in that same boat. I definitely would rather have Bryce Young than Kenny Pickett, like given we've seen 2 bad years from Pickett. That was just kind of my thoughts there.
Yeah, for sure. So generally don't sell them low if you have them. And I always talk about Tua and Herbert, and after year 1, Herbert and Tua were so far apart in terms of where they were valued. And you look at them now and they're, Herbert's QB7, Tua's QB10, so things can change very quickly. With the running backs, I mean, Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders are really the only 2 to talk about. Like Miles Sanders, the only thing I will say about him is it's the perfect example of selling a running back when they have their best season 4 years into their career, like by far their best season, that far into their career, they get a big contract. He's all the way down to RB 60 something now. Like you're not going to get any. You might as well just hold him at this point if you have him. There's really no point in selling him for like a 4th round pick or whatever he's valued at. So, anything on Miles Sanders that you want to touch on?
I'm kind of curious, like how much like He was playing hurt throughout the year. I mean, they paid him he was like one of the first big free agency signings in the offseason, wasn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, and Chuba was already there, so I think. I mean, I'd have to go back and actually like examine it a little bit, but I know he did get hurt early, and then kind of like
he was hurt in preseason.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he missed a lot of training camp, like 2 weeks or something. He didn't practice, or 10 days or something like that. Yeah. So it's a good point for sure.
Yeah, and it's not like they didn't know what they had in Chuba already, so I don't think they necessarily were like, oh, like I think it was more a situational thing, like where it's like Sanders isn't playing fully healthy. They gave Chuba the ball a lot more to kind of take the load off, and Chuba looked better, so they kind of just ran with it. But I'd say Miles Sanders, even though I don't like the idea of buying running backs in the offseason, like necessarily, but if you could get him really cheap, like if you could get him for a couple of third-round picks, like I don't mind buying Miles Sanders because he's going to be on the team next year. I don't think he can be any worse. And, third-round picks aren't really like super valuable. So I kind of like that idea. I think the most attractive thing about him is the contract, like he got his second contract. So he's going to be there for at least another year. And I mean, but it is the Panthers, so I don't even know if that's a good thing.
Yeah. No, it's also new coaching staff, so that's always something to think about. Yeah. But I don't see them cutting him. I can see them rolling in with these. These are their 1 and 2s, Chuba and Miles. There's so much to fix on this team. Like I don't think they want to focus too much on getting a running back at this point when they have these two guys. So I'm fine. You could probably even get Miles Sanders for like 1/3, maybe. I don't know. Like
I was kind of thinking that same thing, but I was kind of going on the high end. Like if you had to pay 2/3 for him, let's say it's like 2 mid-round thirds, would you do that?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's just tough. Like again, it's so hard to know. Like, was he injured? And I don't think it's a terrible thing. I'd like to wait maybe at least past the draft just to see what happens. Like who's the coach of this team? What do they do? Do they bring anyone else in type of thing? I wouldn't do it now, I guess, with a lot of not knowing who the coach is and, if they're going to bring anyone in or not. So I kind of feel that way with like Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard is interesting. He finished as the RB 28 on the year, but if you take it from week 6 on to when he started to play more, he was the RB 18. And he's one of those, I'm all for like almost there's like 95% of the running backs. If I can sell them in the offseason, I want to, and just like take my chances with other guys or get some draft capital and things like that. Chuba he's generally one of those, but also I don't think you're going to get people don't value him as to what he finished or what he could be next year. He's valued as RB 36. Like, I don't want to trade Chuba for like a 3rd-round pick, even though I did in our redraft before he kind of started going off. Yeah. It was like right in the middle of it, I think, or in our dynasty league. It was like right in the middle of it. I did sell him for a 3rd, but I don't think I want to do that right now. If that makes sense. It's just like you're not going to get. People don't like him enough to get enough for him. If someone offered me a 2nd, I'd probably take it. I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't sell him for a 3rd, but I would take a 2nd. Maybe I can't imagine his value is going to go anywhere but down in the off season. So kind of like now is the time to sell. But like you said, like I don't know who's really buying. Like it might be kind of like maybe trading him for like a struggling young wide receiver, like even one of the year 2 guys. Like I don't even know if this is like realistic, but I'm just trying to think of like do you think you could trade Chuba for like Treylon Burks?
Probably not, but I would.
No idea if that's even like in the realm of possibility. Yeah, I know, right? So that's kind of what I was thinking. It's like
here's some players, wide receivers he's valued as a 2025 late 2nd. Michael Wilson, Rashid Shaheed, Marvin Mims. I'd trade him for like one of Michael Wilson or Marvin Mims. Just like take a chance on one of those receivers, and it might not work out, but I don't necessarily think like Chuba's going to be a top 20 running back next year, but he could be. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he is like a low end RB2. I don't know. Would you trade him for like Mims and Michael Wilson, 2 rookies last year or this past season?
Yeah, I would, just to take the shot. Especially, I think Wilson's more attractive because we haven't seen him play much with Kyler, and not that necessarily he's going to be the man, but it's like he was he a late second round pick for the Cardinals or a third round?
I think it was a third rounder.
Okay.
Which, yeah, he was a third rounder. It looks like mid to late third round pick.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see him as round 3, pick 31. So, yeah, I don't even know if you could get that done. But anyways, we don't have to talk about Chuba too much more.
Yeah. But I could definitely see them rolling in with just these 2 guys. Obviously, they'll bring someone else in, but no one else to talk about. Tariq Cohen, I was surprised, is on their practice squad. If you guys remember him from like 2018.
Was he on the Bears?
Yeah. He had like one really good pass catching year, and then I think he blew his Achilles or something.
Yeah, he had some kind of serious injury and like early on too. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And then the last positional group, because the tight ends, there's really nothing to talk about. It's Tommy Tremble and Hayden Hurst, and they're not anything to talk about as of now. Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, DJ Shark's a free agent. Like Terrace Marshall is not going to be anything. It's really Thielen and Mingo. My feelings about Thielen are kind of like similar to Chuba. If I'm a competing team, like I don't think anyone's going to give you anything that's worth his value potential. Like I don't want to trade him for a third. I guess that is Adam Thielen is who I'm talking about. I just hold on to him as a competing team and just see like if he at least has another decent year, or even just a 5-game stretch of like I can start him. Like even that's valuable. So I don't know how you feel about Adam Thielen on a competing team.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well hold him, like you said. Like you could be a spot starter for you. Like he was the best receiver on the team, but you definitely missed your window to sell him. Which I think probably a lot of people were talking about, like during the season, where it's like when you see a receiver at his age, I didn't realize he was 33. 33.4 according to Keep Trade Cut. Like I would have guessed like 31 or something. So yeah, he's way past his prime, but we obviously saw he could still get it done because they're kind of like using him a little different, like more effectively, a lot of short area stuff. So yeah, I think he's just a solid hold right now. Like I don't know what else. If you can get an early 3rd round pick for Adam Thielen, just do it, But I don't know. I don't think anyone's trading for him right now because we don't even know if he's going to play anymore.
Yeah, I think he will because his contract is going to pay him a decent amount. But yeah, I mean, Keep Trade Cut has him valued as like a late 2025 third. So on a contending team, I'll just keep that. And this team's going to bring in a receiver. They have the decent cap space. They're going to overpay for like a T. Higgins or a Brandon Ayuk, and they're probably going to draft someone with their first pick, which is the 2nd round or in the 3rd round. So I expect them. They have to surround Bryce with more. Thielen should be your wide receiver 3. That's what at this point in his career. So, and then Mingo, like I'm totally fine just re-rolling him, and by that I just mean like you probably spent early to mid 2nd round pick. If I can get a mid to late 2nd for him, I just do that and just like take my chances rolling another player. Kind of. I didn't really like him coming out of college. The only reason he went as high as he did in rookie drafts is because he was a high 2nd round pick in the draft, and it was kind of a surprise for a lot of people. So I don't know. Like if I can re-roll him, get anywhere close to what I spent on him, I'm definitely doing it.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't mind holding either, just because, like he is so young and his quarterback's so young, so maybe they can develop some chemistry. But yeah, I don't know how likely it is that he becomes anything because he did play a lot and he didn't do anything with it. So, I mean, yeah, he had 85 targets this season. I'm actually really surprised by that, but I don't know. I didn't really watch too many Panther games, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily think like athletically it wasn't there for me, and that's not everything, of course, but even his production in college, like he wasn't even the most productive receiver on his team in college, and like he really didn't do anything until his 4th year in college, and breakout age is a real thing. Like you want to see 18 and 19-year-olds dominating 20, 21-year-olds in college. You don't want to see it the opposite. Like their first good season is when they're 21 or 22 years old. You would hope not to see that, and that's kind of what it was with Mingo. He didn't really dominate until his 4th year in college, and he was 21 at that point. So I don't know. So
yeah,
it's just not super exciting in my opinion. So that's kind of it with the Panthers. Disappointing team for sure. Tough to watch. Definitely the worst team in the NFL, and it sucks that they don't have their first round pick. So, any last words on the Panthers?
No, not really. But yeah, no, that really does suck that they don't have their first. Like, I hope, because that could really like screw them over. Like if Bryce doesn't turn into anything, and they basically gave up their chance at a quarterback this year. But I mean, then again, if they still suck next year, they're going to have another high draft pick, and I guess, maybe 2025 is their year. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? But that's it. We're going to be back talking about the Arizona Cardinals next, which is kind of an interesting team. As always, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time.